Hi, everyone. This is Barry Friedland, and I'm with Jacob Kravitz, as usual, with a wonderful chat today with Don't Shop on Tuesday. We are with David Chrisothi, and I've been practicing that, who is co-founder, and executive director, my cat's helping, Launch for Life in Richmond, Virginia. And may I just say, I think this is one of the most important things that we can do right now. It's a mentorship program for teenage boys, and it's localized right now in this area. And we just want to know everything about it. Just how it started. Who are you helping? What are the effects? How can people replicate this? Everything. So thank you so
Sure
much
thing.
for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we started we're on our sixth year, so and going strong. Yeah, we are a group mentoring program that focuses on adolescent boys. The entry level is 12 to 16. And they're coming from fatherless homes or they need a positive male role model in their life. Um, and how that started was I grew up without a father in my life. I grew up with a single mom, and along the way, through coaching, through friends who had fathers in my lives, they added value. Each one of them added value as mentors in my life. Um, Although I did struggle early on in adolescence. I was in juvenile detention early on in my life at 13. And then also my freshman year in high school, I was suspended 7 times for fighting. I was a pretty angry kid, angry at the world, angry at my dad, angry at the situation I was in. And then I ultimately met my my main male role model at 16 years old, and he completely changed my life. And what he did was he didn't. It wasn't about giving me advice. It wasn't about giving me money or giving me things or opportunities. Right. What he did was show me my worth and show me that I was not showing the world what I was worth. And that was pretty empowering to me. And his sort of steadfastness, his presence, the ministry of presence, I think is really important to young boys, just being there consistently. And that's something growing up as a father without a father, that's something that you miss out on is that consistency and presence. And so he offered me that. Um, I also have two sons. I was blessed with two sons, ages 18 and 15 now, Michael and William, the wonderful boys. And at the time when I started this organization, I saw what value I brought to them that I didn't have growing up. And now they were becoming well-rounded, respectful, successful young men. I created this organization during COVID. Obviously, there was a lot going on other than just COVID during that time. And I wanted to have an impact. And I wanted to have an impact directly in my community. Um, I was also coaching a lot. I was coaching my sons, but I was also coaching a lot of boys that came from fatherless homes or came from environments where they didn't have positive male role models. And the idea sprung from all of that cumulatively, right? Is my experiences as a young man and my experiences as an adult. And what I saw in the community, what I saw in our community, which was a lack of positive male role models, both just in home environments, in schools, in coaching, right? I think we have really gone away from focusing on our young men. And there's a reason for that, right? For a long time, men have had the upper hand, and there's been a shift to, hey, let's bring women up, and I think that's fantastic. But I also think it's not a zero sum game. I think that we can focus on women and focus on men at the same time, and they both will help each other empower each other to rise and be successful. So that's why I started the organization.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned before this is a group mentorship sort of
Mhm.
program. So is that so can you describe a little bit more about how that works and how big are these groups? How do the relationships in that look like and what's the
Sure.
goal?
Yeah, we have three phases of our program. So our first phase is our junior program, and we try to stick to a 4-to-1 ratio. So one mentor to four mentees. Typically, we have 1 to 2. So typically, we have 20 mentees to start and 10 mentors. And why I like the group mentoring program, and I've been involved in some other great mentoring programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they're great programs, they're needed programs. But what I found is like that initial matching can be difficult, right? Is trying to find somebody that fits with that child, and they can have some commonalities, some similar backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, ethnical backgrounds, and that can be difficult. And then the consistency aspect to that one on one. And for me, what I found in the group environment is that not only do you always, sorry, that's my dogs fighting in the background.
No, it's good.
But not only do you have consistency in every single event we have, there's always a mentor available. Never are you going to have a situation where the mentor's sick. Can we reschedule?
Okay.
There's always going to be somebody available to mentor these boys, and that's the consistency piece that is so important. That is often sometimes missing in 1-to-1. The second
Mhm.
part of that is that we pull from a variety of different mentors. We have mentors who are 22 all the way up to 65 and everything in between, right? And all different ethnical backgrounds, races, cultures, right? Experiences, socioeconomic backgrounds. And why we think that's really important for the boys to see the collective amount of mentors that we have is because it's easy it's hard for a boy at 14 to look at me at 46 years old and go, oh, he's got it all together. He's 46, he's got a home, he's got 2 kids, he's got a wife, all these things, right? And they don't see the process, right? And so it's nice to have mentors who are in their 20s, who are in their 30s, who are in their 40s, because you can see the relatability of that, right? And obviously, as a white male, right, am I going to be as relatable to a black boy? Probably not, right? I maybe have some commonalities with him, you know, but we want to have a cultural a group as well that can reach different groups, right? So that group mentoring, I think, is really important. The third thing that was sort of a surprise in the group mentoring that I love. It's one of the things I love the most in our program is that in the group mentoring, you have the peer-to-peer mentorship, right? These boys immediately become a brotherhood. Immediately. We have a camp to start our junior program. It's a 3-day day camp in the summer. It's in August. And this is basically how we launch our junior program. And the first day, you can see they're all sort of timid. They're a little unsure. By the end of that day, they're brothers, right? They're trading phone numbers with each other. They're laughing. They're having a great time. And by the end of the first year, that junior year, oh, they're best of friends, right? And they also hold each other accountable. We see that in our program. They start to correct each other. Hey, man, David's talking, keep it down, right? Let him talk, raise your hand when he's done talking. So they start to have that peer-to-peer mentorship and that peer-to-peer brotherhood, which is fantastic in the group mentoring. Now, once we have our junior program is solely focused on our values. So we have different events every other week um, that focus on our core values: leadership, accountability, unity, compassion, community, and honor. Those are our 6 core values where we believe those are the values that we believe young men can be successful both personally and professionally. And so at every event, whatever that event is, and it's active and fun, we want to keep them active. It's so important for boys to be active. So like this Sunday, we're going bowling, we're doing arcades. So we're doing fun stuff, active stuff, but we'll have a value lesson around it. Like our value lesson is going to be around compassion, on Sunday. So our mentors will talk to the boys about what compassion means, how you can apply that in your life, how have they already applied it, have they seen it applied to them. So the value focus is really important to us. The second phase, our second year, is our graduate program. So after junior program, you're completed. We have a full graduation where we have a dinner that we invite the families. We give them a diploma. They actually graduate from our junior program because we want something. They've made a commitment, and we want them to feel like they've achieved something. So the second phase is our graduate program, and that's solely skill focused. Now we still teach our values, but we're focused on skills. So in woodworking, auto mechanics, photography, painting, cooking, skill-based things that, hey, a young man might use personally, in his daily life. He might use it as a hobby, or he might use it as a profession. You want to expose them to things that they might not have been exposed to before. And that's our skill-based program.
Is this still done as a group, sort of?
This is still done as a group. The same mentors, the same mentors and the same mentees graduate together and they stay together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the difference in our graduate program is that we start to do some matching. So at the end of our junior program, we talk to the mentees and their moms, and we talk to our mentors, and we say, hey, who have you connected with, right? Most. And then we will pair them, okay? We'll assign maybe a mentor to 2 to 3 mentees. And they'll focus on those mentees, not just in our events, but outside of our events. So for instance, we have one mentor who will contact our mentees around, hey, send me your progress reports, right? Or what kind of extracurricular activities you have? Are you playing basketball? I'm gonna go to your basketball games. You know how powerful it is for a man to show up to a young man's basketball or football game? Unbelievably powerful. I remember as a boy who played a lot of sports, always looking in the distance, waiting for my father to show up. He never did. Very disappointing. But had he shown up, what a powerful thing that would have been for me, right? And that's what we want to expose to them. So in the graduate program, we do some matching to allow for some more one-on-one connection. But why we like it is because it happens naturally. You're not forcing this interaction, this one-on-one interaction that can be a little awkward.
It sounds like not only are you mentoring these young men, but you're creating this safe space, this family. You can't have too many families. You can't have too many havens. And when I was talking on the phone, I was talking to one of the top psychologists of children's psychology at Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's a small little medical center in Baltimore. Kidding. And he was saying the most dangerous people on the planet are teenage boys. And it transcends race and income and intelligence, literally everything, because their brains are not fully formed. They have all these hormones, all these temptations that can be accessible. They're on the cusp of adulthood and they have to make all these choices. So this is just the perfect time to come in and circumvent just bad decisions and show another path.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And let me add to that is that I think I'm also a resident counselor. So I got my license, or I got my education a few years ago to become a counselor, and I'm currently in residency. And I counsel a lot of adolescents. And I will say, I believe that this generation has it the hardest than any generation before us, mainly because of this thing right here, yes. Right? And the massive amount of information that they consume early on in life, right? And the inability to escape. When we grew up, if we were bullied a little bit, right? We had an escape from that. We went home. If somebody wanted to contact us, they had to go through our mom and dad through a landline, right? And that wasn't going to happen, right? So they had an escape. These kids do not have an escape from the information or the bullying or the the group chats or the Snapchat or the perception of these other adolescent boys and girls succeeding, and not knowing how they got there, right? So I agree. And what I think is really important to point out, to your point about the dangers of adolescent boys, is that it's relationships, the need for relationships. Without relationships, right, what they gravitate to is online activity, which is what? It spirals conspiracy theory, right? It's pornography, it's misogyny, right? And these are the things that make young boys potentially dangerous, is because their access to this information, right? And one of the things that the term I hate the most is toxic masculinity. And I don't think masculinity in and of itself is toxic. I think that that behaviors are toxic. So I often, I often coin it as performative masculinity, right? Is these boys view these individuals online, right, and they want to perform as those men, because they see those men like an Andrew Tate as strong and as financially stable and as getting all these women, and they see them as masculine, but they're not, right? They're just performative, right? They're putting on the suit, the sunglasses, the hair, they're saying the right things, right? And so what our boys, when they don't have proper relationships, when they don't have proper male role models, they just mimic that performance.
I just like to say one more thing in relation and then turn it over to Jacob. When I applied to college and graduate school or my jobs, I didn't have my worst day online. I didn't have any of the stupid things that I did or say on the internet, which is forever. I mean, I used to
Yes, ever.
At a local university. I used to say, never do anything digitally that you don't want your mother to read on the front page of the local newspaper. So all the mistakes you make as an adolescent, or the things you say, or what's happening, it's it disappears. But now it's out there for anyone to find.
Yep, sure is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what you were saying, just about this sort of, community and relationships is just so important and needs to be emphasized, because it is a generalized problem in our society that we are an extremely atomized, isolated society. This certainly has played a big role in that, I think, for everyone, substituting parasocial relationships for actual social relationships, and interpersonal, human relationships. And I think one of the scariest facts I remember reading, and this was several years ago, was that 1 in 6 men said that they had zero close friends. And that, just again, when you have all of these other, factors coming in, and the desperation and the precarity and the constant pumping out of violence and, misogyny and pornography, that all of this, if you don't have anyone in your life who you're close with, that you can talk with, that you can be with, and that is just in and of itself a horrifying situation for all of those people and for society at large.
Absolutely. And there's a reason why, men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide, or 3 times more likely to be addicted to drugs, right? And a lot of that has to do with not just the role models, but the lack of relationships. I don't know if you follow Scott Galloway, but he's a big proponent in this space. And there's a statistic in his new book that he talks about, in men in the ages of 18 to 24, 45% of those men have never approached a woman to ask them out. 45%. That's a crazy number. That's a startling number to me. They've never approached a woman to ask them out, right? And that shows you the disconnect that boys are having with relationships, is that they are gravitating more towards what is safe online for them in their mind, right? What is safe, what's easy, right? Because they don't have the role models, and they're not guided in the direction of how to approach relationships. And go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask around this sort of relationship point, because at least you read sort of the advent, the coming of these sort of AI relationships, both in terms of people forming AI psychoses and having, that sort of thing. But in addition, just now these companies are touting your ability to have sort of a personalized. Have you one encountered any of among these young men encountered sort of that as a thing of interest, and sort of how are you dealing with that as a in terms of the difficulties sort of an actual relationship, and dealing with a real human being is much richer, but sort of kind of like sweets, the sort of always agreeing and gassing you up of an AI could in the moment feel just very good, and especially at a young age when they haven't fully developed and are trying to learn about how to interact with others. I wonder if you've encountered that at all and what your thoughts are on
Sure. Yeah. I'll say two things on that. One, in the mentorship program, a lot of what I encounter in relationships is more about online relationships, right? Whether that's through video gaming, whether that's through Snapchat, random people that you are connecting with. However, that online environment is, that's the connection that young boys are having more and more now than that personal one-to-one connection. As you get older, what I found as a resident counselor is that older men, 18 to 24, are utilizing AI more to communicate, right? I've even had clients who have talked about how they've used AI as counseling, right? They'll communicate with Chat GPT as if the Chat GPT is their counselor, right? And so there is certainly an ease in which we can connect with AI that makes it feel like we have a connection, but we're missing so much of that connection. Physical touch, eye contact, the nonverbal cues that we look for in communication, right? Laughter, all these things that are missing with online connection. And let's call a spade a spade. The reality is that what technology, what social media thrives off of, is not positive connection. It's just not, right? It's chaos. That's what social media feeds off of, right? And these algorithms are really, really smart. Look, I like TikTok just like everybody else likes TikTok. And if I watch the wrong TikTok twice in a row, then that's all I'm getting, right? So if I see something that's negative across my feed, that's what I'm going to get until I try to figure out how to change that algorithm. So that is what's driving things, right? Is that chaos, that negativity, the pitting one person against the other, right? And so these young men are seeing that, and young men are naturally aggressive, right? And that aggression can come out in a positive way or come out in a negative way. But if you're exposed to negativity, it's going to come out in a negative aggression. It just is.
When you aggregate what both of you have been saying, that too many men do not ask women out for a date. They hide behind their phones. Some people date on their phones. I mean, they're texting back and forth. They don't have human connections, and then they're so much online. Online is fake. I mean, it's if you have a friend and the friend screws up and you talk about it, or the friend's there to support you, it's a human connection that's real and that grows. But what's online is they want to sell you things, they want chaos, they want your attention. So the combination, each is bad, but together it seems fatal.
Absolutely. And that's why, like in our program, at every single one of our events, the last every graduate program has a capstone project where they either volunteer to help out in the community or they build something for the next group behind them. And last year's group built it's called a cell phone jail. So every event, everyone puts their cell phone in the cell phone jail, and they focus on the event, They focus on the lesson. They focus on each other. And what's amazing about that is the kids don't miss it. They don't miss the phone. We have a fishing event for 3 hours, and they put the cell phone down and they go fishing for 3 hours. Sometimes they don't catch anything, but the simple fact that they're out in, in space, right? They're looking at the lake, right? It's a nice day out. They're with their friends. They're with their mentor. They're casting out. They're attempting to achieve something, right? It's so powerful that they forget about their phone. And that's what I think is really valuable about a program like ours. It gives them a little break from all of that, where they can focus on something positive. They can be around positive people, positive friends, and men that have their best interests at heart. And I do want to say something about the men in our program. Without the men in our program, we don't have a mentor program. And what I have found over 6 years about our program that I think has been so successful is we've had mentors in our program for 5-6 years, and they repeat. They come back and they repeat the cycle, and we're seeing that at like an 80% rate, where the mentors in our program are coming back after they're done and doing it all over again. Because what they tell me is that they see just as much value for themselves as they give to the kids. And that's something that I don't mean to.
How do you find
Yep.
And these individuals, and is there some sort of training or anything that you put them through? You obviously have training as a counselor, as you were saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
what's that process like?
Yeah, so we find them in different ways, right? A lot of word of mouth, right? Our current mentors will reach out to people they think are good mentors. We'll reach out to sports organizations. We'll reach out to faith institutions. We'll reach out to schools, and try to find them that way. As far as training goes, yeah, we do training. So one, we heavily background check our mentors. I do an interview of each one of them, a screening interview. And then we do a county, state, and federal background check. We even do a DMV check in case they've had some issues with DUIs and stuff like that. So we want to make sure our mentors are of the best value and add safety to our program. And then we put them through sort of like a psychological test, right? We invite them out to a gathering, right? Where, as adults, we have alcohol available, and, we want to see how they interact in that environment as well, right? Because some people interact a little bit differently, right? When they have a couple drinks in them, and I'm okay with that, right? We're adults. You can have a couple drinks, but let's see how you act. And then after that, if you've gotten through all of that, then we have our training right before camp. We utilize Mentor Virginia. Mentor National is a big mentoring organization that focuses on youth mentoring. And we've contracted with Mentor Virginia to help us with the initial training. And then second half of the year, we're actually going to be doing it the third weekend in January. We have a second training halfway through the first year, where we bring back all the mentors again, and we go through a series of different training.
There's a Buddhist parable, and I'm not saying it exactly, but if you light a lantern for someone, it illuminates both of your paths. So it's not surprising that benefits and growth come to both parties, to the mentors and the young men that they are helping. And I've recently, in my crotchety old age, have divided people into those whose legacy is giving back in some way. And life is hard enough. We have to, we have relationships, and we have jobs, and we have all these things. But do you extend yourself for a broader community? Do you do things beyond your own? And as I said, this is my thing right now, but I just feel that adds richness to people's lives, that they can extend themselves beyond their own little, as Jellicoe would say, silo, and and go out in the community wherever it is and just make an incredible difference.
Yeah, and I'd like to take this opportunity to challenge any adult men that are listening to this. The single point of failure of a young man's life is a loss of a positive male role model. And if you want to be, if you want to extend masculinity, if you want to show masculinity, help somebody, help our youth, help our young men. That is the challenge I would have for any man that's listening to this. It doesn't have to be my organization, be any organization. You don't even have to be part of an organization, right? There is a young man out there that needs guidance. And guess what? They're going to find the guidance, right? One way or another, young men look for role models, right? But it's our job as positive men to give them that positive role model and not them searching for the negative ones that puts them in these compromising positions.
And some young men never escape the consequences of actions that they took as teenagers. Now, some kids have protections, and some are then, enmeshed and imprisoned by decisions they made literally as children without the proper guidance.
Well, this happens even earlier than adolescence, right? If you're in elementary school, right, and naturally school has become more biased against against boys, right? With the environment that there is, and less male teachers, right? And so, as a young boy in elementary school, if you get in trouble, and I was there, you're the bad kid, right? And that your second grade teacher talks to your third grade teacher, watch out for this kid. And then your third grade teacher talks to your fourth grade teacher, watch out for this kid, and so on and so forth. And after a while, and I was there, you start to tell yourself, I'm just a bad kid. This is just who I am. And I might as well continue being bad. Right. And that's the mentality that gets ingrained into your mind when adults are telling you these things over and over and over again. And you don't have the opportunity to get out of that.
After 6 years, you've gotten to see a bunch of, especially with 12 to 16-year-olds. You've gotten to see people move up through middle school, high school, graduation. Have you seen or have any evidence, I guess, around, like, are we seeing better results from these kids, or improvements overall in their lives? There's at least anecdotal evidence. It might not be a large enough sample to do.
Yeah, no, we're gathering that data, right? I will say last year we had our first group of high school graduates. We had 6 high school graduates. 5 of them went to college. And one of them was going into trade, which to us, given the statistics of what we're seeing now for boys going into college, right? 40% of graduating high school boys are entering into secondary college. That's a good number to me, right? But even more so is the feedback we're getting from their moms. Right? Is that the way they have changed, the way have they become empowered in themselves, the way they treat their moms, the way they treat their siblings, the way they treat their friends, right? That is more of the success in my mind, right? I want them to achieve their goals and go into college or go into trade or go to military, whatever they decide to do. But that's sort of secondary in my mind to the values, right? We're very value focused. The values in which we can instill in these boys where they can carry on to the rest of their life, both professionally and personally.
You had me when they gave up their phones for 3 hours.
Yes.
I used to work for a direct marketing firm, and we worked with a lot of charities. And people would say to me, where should I donate? And I would go, the smaller, the better, in my opinion, because not to take away from some of these national groups, but they have a great deal of, well, they used to have government funding, but they have a lot of funding. But I said, if you really want to get bang for your buck, if you really want to make a difference, look in your community and look at the small groups that are doing amazing things. And I say this, of course, because you're based in the Richmond metropolitan area, that, at some point you may or may not expand. I mean, you do, I think, have a role model for other organizations throughout the country, for other people. And I love what you said about you put the message out to all men. But you know, when I if you donate, and I think everyone should, just look at organizations like yours. You made a very good point to me on the phone that sometimes, as effective as you are, as groundbreaking work as you're doing, sometimes you get overlooked, but when attentions to larger, more well-known organizations.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we this program to the families are 100% free. We even provide free transportation if needed, right? So everything to these boys, we feed them events, right? Everything to them is free. So fundraising is a big piece of what we do, but it is very difficult as a small organization. We work off a very small budget. We beg, borrow, and steal to try to keep this program free. But yes, um, getting grants from large corporations is very difficult, right? Because they want to see that we're hitting a national agenda, right? Which we can't right now, right? Same with federal grants. You got to go in a certain area, right? And you have to have a grant writer, right? And you need money for a grant writer, and I need a grant writer for money. So there's a chicken and an egg thing, right? So yeah, it's we get a lot from our local donors, individual donors. We work with Mustache for Kids every year, which is a big fundraising piece for us. We have small fundraising events. And then one of the surprising, actually not so surprising, um, areas where we get donations from, not monetary donations, but food donations is the restaurant industry in the Richmond area. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. Anytime I reach out to a restaurant or somebody reaches out to a restaurant, absolutely. They're like, how much food can we throw at you? Which has been really, really good. But yes, if you are considering donating, and it doesn't matter, it can be $100 to $100,000, right? If you're considering donating to an organization, definitely look at the small organizations because those bigger organizations, they're getting money, right? It's easier for them. And honestly, not to not to blow our own horn, but we only have one paid employee, and she's part time, right? I don't take a salary from this. I do this I have two other jobs, full-time jobs that I do. This is a part-time hobby for me almost. Actually, it's full-time, but it's I don't get paid for this. None of my board gets paid for this. We had our first hire this year. She's part-time and she focuses on our moms and connecting with our moms. Most of these larger organizations, most of them bring in a salary, and a big chunk of what you're giving them goes to them. And most of what we collect, most of the fundraising we collect goes directly to those boys and their families.
David, we want to thank you so much for joining us, for volunteering your time today to take out of what sounds like an extremely busy schedule and some incredible work that you're doing. Again, David Grisafi, co-founder and executive director of Launch for Life. The website is www.thelaunchforlife.com. Please go check it out, donate, volunteer, and be, a positive part of a role model like David is for men in their community. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, don't shop on Tuesday.